Good morning again. Welcome to our Crossfire debate. This, for me, is the high spot of the day. You've had some fabulous speakers so far, really, really insightful. But you ain't seen nothing yet, because this is our Crossfire debate, our presidential-style debate, where we got some of the smartest and most experienced people in the world on a transformation journey, both to tell you a bit about that, but also, please, audience, asking them questions. I've got my iPad up here, so you tweet questions, tweet comments, tweet disagreements, and those of you watching around the world, please do the same. So let me tell you a little bit about how it's going to work. I'm going to introduce the panel, and then they're going to get them talking, but they're going to be talking to each other and to you about their journey to transform to a digital business. So without further ado, let me introduce our panel for today. We have Michael Hart, who is the Group Executive and Chief Information Officer at Commonwealth Bank in Australia, and will shortly actually be relocating to London to take up a very senior role in Barclays Bank. We have Albert Hitchcock. Albert is the Group CIO of Pearson. The publisher was formerly the Group CIO of Vodafone. So both understanding the telecom industry and now the publishing industry. We have Phil Jordan, who is Group CIO of Telefonica. Phil's got a background also in Vodafone and O2, and is leading Telefonica's global transformation, all their properties around the world. And finally, we've got Peter Sany. Peter is the CITO, Chief Information and Technical Officer of Swiss Life, the Swiss-based insurance company. In previous lives, though, he was being the CIO of Novartis, the pharmaceuticals company, and Deutsche Telekom. So fabulous amount of experience of all these four gentlemen. So please give a nice, big, rousing TM Forum welcome to our panelists. Gentlemen, good morning. Well,
afternoon.
Your audience is here and around the world, and what we want to do today is really pick into your brains about what you have learned on this journey. Now, these gentlemen are here from their companies, but what they're telling you about is their life experience. They're not necessarily stating their company positions. They're telling you about some of the scars on their back and their front and wherever they got the scars of the journeys they've been on. So just to get to know them a little bit more, I'm going to go and ask each panelist in turn. Just give us a minute or so, starting with Michael. What have you been trying to achieve in the bank? What's the journey been for? What's the end goal? And if you could sum up, perhaps in one or two words, what are the absolute key things you learned on that journey so far?
So the 6-year transformation at the Commonwealth Bank is focused specifically on customer service and everything as a service for the customer. When you've got 40 years of legacy where the systems of record are all about the product or process, and they're all batch-based, and they're all computing for the firm. They're systems of record for the firm, calculating risk or liquidity or profitability on a daily or weekly or quarterly basis. There's very little by way of any clear services or data structures for customer. And when you look at the IT budget of about $1 billion or $2 billion, most of that expense is in maintaining the legacy. And so we had to go to cloud to free up capital. We had to move all the old logic from product to customer and invest that money so that we could make granular, persistent services available in mobile, from cloud. And that takes a huge amount of effort in retraining people, in moving the capital and getting assistance from the business to shift to that new model.
So was the one word on the journey, it's all about the customer?
Yes.
Put the customer right at the center. I know, Albert, you told me a very similar story about Vodafone, about how you couldn't move till you got that maintenance load down. You freed up capital to transform. But tell us a little bit about the Pearson journey, because most people here won't be overly familiar with Pearson. What's Pearson trying to do in transforming to a digital business, and why are you there?
Yeah, in many ways people think that the transition from going to a very large multinational telco to a sort of a more traditional publishing business or an education business in the case of Pearson was a rather sort of strange move for myself, you know, in a way, in that, you know, I've lived most of my career in telco, but actually what I've discovered is, although it's in a different sector, a different part of the value chain, you know, content as opposed to transporting content, the challenges are almost identical. And when I think about the 7 years at Vodafone, my journey was really about transforming through simplification. Right. So, you know, Vodafone grew through acquisition, Pearson has grown through acquisition. So, you know, complexity gets acquired. And so it's a similar journey. It's transformation through simplifying the underlying ecosystem. And then how do you get more intimate with customers through improving the customer experience and creating a set of services that become very integral to customer success. And so the dynamics are almost identical in a way, in that it's a simplification, standardization journey to take out the legacy and drive efficiency in the core. At the same time, it's how do you considerably uplift the customer experience.
Well, I want to come back to that because Michael said it, you said it. I suspect we're going to hear a similar thing from Phil and Peter about putting the customer at the centre of the business. And I want to come back to that in a minute about how do you turn that nice sounding aspiration into a reality. But Phil, every time I talk to you talk, it's all about simplicity. Can you tell us a bit more about the Telefonica journey?
Yeah, I mean, from a very similar messages, from a Telefonica transformation perspective, we're very much about becoming a fully digital telco, an aggregator of digital services, so changing our business model. From an IT perspective, it's very much about IT being the thing that powers us. IT traditionally has been back office and a support function in Telefonica, very much systems of record focused. And we're now entering an era where it's all about, all the differentiation in our business is IT driven. So repositioning IT in the business from being a systems of record to an enabler of digital is very much the transformation we're on. Of course, that's consolidation and simplification. A lot of transformation of business applications, new digital capabilities. And there's nothing we're not changing now in IT in Telefonica across all countries and across all layers of IT. But it really starts and stops with, first of all, simplifying our business and simplifying the systems that support it. And as Albert said, standardizing in the core so that we can enable IT to reposition itself and take that outside-in view, which we have to now.
And Peter, the Swiss Life journey and all the other experiences you have, but particularly the Swiss Life journey, where are you heading? You know, what do you want to be when you get there? How will we know?
Well, actually, I agree with a lot of what was said, and we are on the same journey. I'd like to add one thing to putting the customer in the center. If you focus on your most valuable customers, and there are great examples around that, be it the one with the red and the yellow colors or the one with the blue colors, you can be wrong. You can focus on the wrong people. Yes, you have to serve them, but there's another constituency rising, which is putting your whole business in question. Secondly, is a great parallel between the telcos and the insurance business. Telcos still today sometimes talk about subscribers. Our insurance industry is talking about applicants, not customers. So just the mere fact that you're not starting with the product, you're starting with the customer and customer needs, and you really step by step turn the company upside down, including all the processes, including all the systems, including the culture of every single person touching a customer, whether it's in an electronic means, designing the process, picking up kind of a video chat off the net, or in a face-to-face communication.
Okay, so that all sounds great, and you're all agreeing with each other. But historically, in many, many companies, the IT department is the, quote, back office. It's at the back of the business. And the customer, you've all said, is at the front of the business. And in many cases, the IT department is disconnected from even the business part, let alone from the customer. So how do you get that connectivity? How do you really put the customer at the heart of the business? And how do you take the engine of a digital world, which is the IT technological infrastructure, to the kind of front of the business instead of the back of the business. And as the CIO, there's not necessarily in your gift. I mean, that's the CEO and the rest of the executive team. So how do you take the change in the business and the change of the role of the CIO and the change of the IT department itself on that sort of cultural journey where the permission to do it, if you like, is the rest of the executive team, rather than they toss a requirement over the wall and moan at you for being late and IT is the problem?
I'm not sure that analogy is true.
Is it not true?
No, I think it used to be true, and let's be honest, one of the reasons...
Well, that's what I want to get at.
One of the reasons we have problems...
How did you do it?
One of the reasons we have problems is because IT was run by network people for a very long time in the industry. And network was the core differentiator, everything was centric to the network. And of course, the reality now is we're sharing networks are more commoditized. Of course, we want rich, capable, deep networks. But the interaction with our customers, the digital channel and the way we use data are the core differentiator in the future. And I think it used to be the case that our business counterparts didn't understand that. It's not true now. They understand that very well. And IT now is very much seen as a core enabler.
But did you drive that, or did it pull you?
Both.
I mean, how did it work?
Both, I think. I think we've told the right story. In many of the businesses here, I'm sure it's the same. But I think people understand that now.
And do you think, all your companies, have you completed that? I mean, Albert, you're new into Pearson. Is this a learning journey for the company? Or is it, as Phil said, we're there?
I think it's a combination of things. It's a matter of having the right technology skills, the right technology assets, and developing the vision around technology. But I also think fundamentally it's a leadership challenge rather than a technology challenge. I think all technology challenges can be solved in time, right? And there's nothing that we're doing that's necessarily rocket science, right? So we're not trying to put a man on the moon here. You know, in most cases, we're trying to implement fairly standardized industry technologies, but it's how IT influences the business outcomes, about how you get a seat at the table, how you drive change in the organization, how you drive change perhaps in a culture that's not fully adaptive to change. And so that requires a set of leadership skills in the organization, not just myself, my leadership team, their leaders, the managers all the way down through the IT organization. Do they have the influencing skills, communication skills, consultative skills to engage in the business and drive the change with the business? And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges.
So the power's actually shifted to the consumer. So we've seen all this beautiful consumerization of IT, and consumers now are far more sophisticated. They have far greater choice. So they're actually driving the change. Now, if organizations are not meeting the challenge of digitization, now what pressure that's put on our corporation to go more consumer focused is that in the sales and service area at the front, you've got these dynamic agile teams working on new methods of sales and service. They're then looking at the way they can lean out services within the organization, so they have this huddle around lean continuous improvement, and the IT organization, in order to keep up with that, has to have these agile scrums. So you've got front, middle and back, if you like, working together in similar agile work teams where there's really no difference between IT and business anymore. It's digitizing the services that the customers are demanding and trying to keep up with the relationship that these guys want online, real-time, anywhere, simple, convenient access.
Okay, well,
I'd like to piggyback on that one. I kind of hate these us and them, IT versus business type of discussions. It's an us for them, and us means the whole executive team, the whole company serving them, the customers. So it's a complete, kind of shift of paradigms.
And I'm not trying to characterize it like that, but I want to know how you did it, guys. I want to know how you took that transformation to not only, yes, here's the seat at the front of the table, but you actually connected to the front end of the business. You talked about agile just then, because if the IT department or infrastructure is not delivering what the business wants, and probably going beyond that, because as we see in many applications, quite often the customer doesn't know what they want, but they know good when they see it. And I would imagine, at least, that a lot of your business teams are not necessarily aware of the art of the possible until you show them that certain things can. Had you thought about doing it a different way? Is that something that you've been able to achieve with your team?
That's exactly the kind of cycle is. The saying of my CEO, which we created together, is he says, what could I want if I knew what was possible?
Right.
So this is the type of discussions which we had, and it's a funny thing, you know. Harry Ford said, if I asked the people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. So I think that there needs to be some kind of spark out there, what can be possible, but it's from a business idea or from a technology idea, and then you go into these Scrum teams or multi-functional teams, designing that in a very, very fast pace, testing it out, getting the data around it, does it get adoption, is it a good business model, etc., and then you drive it forward from there.
Phil, how does that work in a group context where you've got multiple of these replicated infrastructures? How do you at the group level, first of all, help that journey to occur front to back to front? And secondly, how do you get that after the possible innovation, high speed part working?
There's two answers to that. I think do we recognise the need? Is that well understood? Is there a collaboration and a relationship with IT and the business? I think that's done. Certainly in our context, it's clear. And listen, there are smart people running CSPs, and all the messages this morning were bashing the CSPs. So people know that. We understand what we need to do. The reality is that we have 30 years of legacy, and very deeply siloed businesses to overcome, and working from back to front, as Michael says, is exactly what we're trying to do, but it's difficult. So I think we're over the agenda of do we need to. Right. I don't know any telco that isn't completely on that page. We still are left with the execution challenge. Right. And it's tough. It's tough. We're regulated in a very tough way. We have very complicated legacy. Our partner ecosystems don't always help us standardize. So it's tough. And I think what we're now asking, I'm certainly asking our board, is let's maintain the vision. Let's be brave enough to stay this journey, and we will solve the problem. What we can't do now is deviate, look for short-term fixes. You know, there's no short-term fix to this. We have to transform our business and transform our technology. To answer your specific question, from a group context, it's just more difficult. Right. You know, I have some of my CIOs in the room, some great CIOs. Coordinating and aligning a group to standardize is disproportionately more difficult than coordinating in one company. Right. But again, it's possible. But we need to be clear on vision. We need to be clear on what we're doing from an execution perspective, and then most important, we need to be brave enough to finish the job.
So let's drill down into some of the how-to then. Michael, you started off with simplification. And I'm assuming you didn't just mean simplification of the IT system.
No, he was simplification, I was customer.
All right,
so what we did,
start with the customer.
They're not mutually exclusive, are they? They go together. No.
Well, perhaps. You've got to run the business. So that legacy is not going away in a hurry. And legacy is not just applications or the logic or the data structures, it's also the people and the way they do work. You can't all of a sudden throw 100 people a PowerPoint slide on Agile or Lean and expect them to know how to do that. So you've actually got to maintain the legacy organization and lean that down and free up the capital from that. And as you go to simplify, if you like, or take away the legacy, you've actually got to make a commitment to a data structure that actually has the life cycle of the customer and the roles that they play through their financial life and the relationships that they have with all the different people and entities in their life, so that you can build a real-time picture of each individual and entity and know the relationships and roles that they're playing, so that every time they're making a query or they're requesting some insight or they're needing some advice, they're interacting or transacting in some manner, they can get an answer specific to them, no matter which channel they've come in or which device they're using, and get an answer specific to them closer and closer, if not in real time. And so this new organization that creates the granularized, standardized, lean organization that's running on the new architecture has to be able to learn those agile skills. They have to be able to develop with that new technology. They have to be in the business, not in IT, and they need to be in the customer conversation.
I think in reality,
you said a very interesting thing
though. Standing still, right? So particularly in our business, the vast majority of our customers are what we call Generation Y, right? So school kids, college kids, young professionals who are on this learning continuum. They benchmark us against Facebook, Amazon, Google, eBay, right? So there's a benchmark we have to meet in terms of customer experience. At the same time, we've got to transform our legacy back office, which is not a quick capability to deliver.
Really
so you've got to do that at the same time as continue to evolve the customer experience very fast.
If that front end of the business needs to be that Generation Y look, feel, interaction, that has an implication not just on the IT infrastructure that's delivering it. It has an implication on the product portfolio, the channels to market, the business processes, the business models, and the delivery infrastructure. So in a transformation journey, sort of getting it very, very simple, is it possible to start from transforming your systems, or do you have to start at what does the customer need? What's the implication on the portfolio? How does that impact the
whole of the
model?
organisation? It can't be IT out or customer in. It has to be the whole of the organisation.
Right. So when you went on these journeys, did it occur in that nice sequential thing, or was it a bit messy in terms of the portfolio transformation, the process transformation, the systems
It's messy because you've got simultaneous equations, but then during the business cycle, the requirements may change or the priorities may shift. So for example, we went after customer first, and then there was a liquidity crisis. So in the middle of the GFC, the requirement to raise deposits was paramount to stay solvent and to remain in business. So we went after deposits and made deposits and savings real time as a matter of priority, and that allowed us to continue to grow the business. Then there was a period of time where interest rates fell, and there was a huge demand for lending, and so we had to go after the lending. So you can't plan 6 years in advance, and you can't go into the logic and the data structures of these legacy systems and know what's there. Some of those things are not documented that well, and they don't translate or convert very easily to a new model. So this can cost you time and money, and the time and money can be triple that which you originally estimated.
Come on, fellas, dive in.
But this is the point I was making about having the faith to continue on the journey, because Michael's right in our industry saying there's so many dynamic features around us. Things are constantly changing. I think if you're not committed to a vision of a simpler business that's customer-centric, that's digital, it's so easy to fall into the trap of add technology, add layers of process, add products. And that's our history. I think, and I directly link that back to the voice of IT in our business. We've been very flexible as an industry in IT because we built everything the business has asked for. What we haven't done is had any much architectural integrity to build it in a way that's reusable. And much in the way the OTTs have. They're new, they have new technology, they're not regulated in the same way. They've built one platform that's reusable. So we need to get there. But to think that you could lay out a plan and nothing will change.
Well, I'd like to organise the business, right? I mean, we have to provide some structure of how we manage change, because let's face it, when you look at project management, program management, change management, those skills exist within IT. They don't necessarily exist in other parts of the business. So I think it is the role of the CIO and the leadership of technology to put the structure in of how we manage the change.
How we manage the change.
I think we've have the need to do all these things at the same time. That's absolutely true. That's a necessity of life. But I think it's a very big question what you can call the shadow of the leader. Where do you put your biggest emphasis? What is the biggest priority? And we said if the customer is the biggest priority, then we can't be organized in IT and in the business in silos. The first thing we said is rather radical. We kept everything on top. All the customer-facing systems, all the customer-facing people went into a new IT unit, which was called Face to the Customer. So I can't quarrel with him because I have to quarrel within the left and right side of my own organization or my own brain. Makes things rather easy.
They horizontalized the business.
Horizontalized. And we said, these are the core systems. Okay, we kind of shrink wrap them, we use them, and we made another cut at the bottom end, and that's commodity. I don't care. That has to be cheap, etc. You run different models out there. Now, Face to the Customer started between the strategy team of the business and IT. Now, it is the company thing which is linking the different countries. They have this digitization Face to the Customer units, and business's biggest initiative is face to the customer. So that's kind of through the back door with a few radical moves. In the end, you show the organization how to move. And exactly to what you said, Michael, is the agile stuff is in the front, is the modern technologies are in the front, and in the back, I don't really care. It has to be cheap. And it has to be running, because that's the last thing. You can't command your spot at the table as a CIO or as a technology officer and somebody say, hey, why don't you fix email? It doesn't work.
Right.
Last point to this one, we are actually measuring the satisfaction and the net promoter score of the IT organization inside our company. And we are at the 84% net promoter score, 96% satisfaction.
That's good.
And we're measuring
That's pretty impressive.
It's scary.
By the way, folks, please tweet in some questions or comments for these guys. So I want to really drill down now to if the front end of the business is changing very dynamically, and you talked about some examples, almost by the day, but the ability to change the back end of the business to get rid of 30 years of legacy is not an everyday occurrence. So you hinted at it, Michael, but I want to know a bit more about this parallel universe of rationalizing the legacy while you are building a new stack universe. Did I get that right? That it was a kind of, and then you had a progressive cut over, presumably, of products to the new platform. And I know it's a similar approach you took in Vodafone. There are a lot of people out there that say, God, that sounds terribly risky, you know, can't we do small incremental change?
Get over it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so talk about that, because it's a real issue, guys, of how do you do that transformation?
Most corporations have had this legacy problem for over a decade. They just haven't addressed it, because generally it does take 10 years to get rid of it. And you're still not through the journey, you've just figured out how to work differently after about 5 years. And so what we've in fact done is built more and more applications, or more and more rules, or more and more layers within the architecture to keep up with business demand or customer requirement change or regulation. And we've added to this complexity problem. We've added more and more technical debt. And until you get an equal amount of investment at simplifying the back and continuing to do that, because it's a never-ending task, you're always having to devote at least 20 or 30% of your investment to getting rid of that back-end legacy. Most organizations have just said, we're going to try and mask the legacy. We're going to try and invest on top of it. Right. And that's just making matters worse. That's just trying to buy time. That's short-termism that might suit one or other CEO, but eventually it's going to find you out or catch you out. So it takes an investment committee or a board or the CEO and the commitment of the executive committee to say, this new approach will be something that the next generation of leaders get to enjoy, because you can't show the return on that $1 billion 6-year to 10-year investment. So you're ending up with, you know, $6 or $10 billion worth of investment that the current leadership group may not see the direct benefits of.
Tenure has something to do with this, I think. If you get a CEO at the start of their tenure, you have a much better chance of getting this, what Michael was describing, agreed. Yeah, if you catch them in the middle of the tenure, it's a difficult thing for a CEO to vote for.
Well, it took 2 years to get the investment case for the initial work to go up, and you had to have the board talk to the institutional investors and say, yes, this is risky. Yes, we don't know whether we will be successful. However, we have to do this work, and we have to remain committed to it for the long term. Now, the average director tenure is around 10 years. So they can make that investment, and it's up to the board to keep the management honest about the progress that they're making. And if they find out that it's going to cost more, then they need to be able to report that to the market, and the market not penalise them. Otherwise, they stop the work.
The key. Bold in our business, you know, if we go back 15 months, we had one country going through this type of change. We now, by the end of this year, will have 13. And that's about bold leadership. That's about somebody leading the organisation saying, okay, I'm now going to invest in solving this problem. And just one other thing, Keith, you said to be rude and interrupt you.
Yeah, but not that rude.
The other point, the other thing that's worked quite well is making this divide about where the decision-making rights are. Why the business needs to change and when. I think of very commercial decisions, they're CEO-driven decisions. IT should have a role. But the what and the how is where we've applied discipline. So why and when, that I'm very open to the CEOs of all the countries having their own opinion and dictating when they think that is. When they come to that transformation, what and how needs to be disciplined over the long run.
The point I was trying to get in before you interrupted me. I told them all to interrupt me all the time. But the point you make about investment case is a very good one. But isn't it more than just the capital for that? Don't you, if you've got to support a 30-year or 20-year legacy portfolio of product, surely you've got to build all that into the new. So don't you have to, at the same time, clean up the product set?
Yes.
And doesn't that, and I've talked to a number of people, that generally results in a short-term earnings hit because it could cause customers to churn at that point. So not only do you have to swallow the capital, you have to swallow, the CEO has to swallow, standing up in front of the shareholders at the end of the quarter saying, well, the reason why our results are down is because we've got rid of all these legacy products. I mean, that's a big pill to swallow.
It's execution risk, you're right. So the corporation is in the best position to make the right investment decision, but they shouldn't make a decision with undue or unnecessary execution risk. So the art of, once you've got the money, is then to go and get the thousands of people that are currently more or less in a long phase product cycle or a long phase waterfall style project management cycle to increasingly break off into smaller granular service oriented groups that are essentially figuring out how to create the new agile organization. And you're shrinking down the old and building up the new as you create new capability.
One of the things that Phil said that was quite important was around architectural control, right? So because business changes quickly, products and services change and evolve, if you've got that framework of architectural control in place, then over time you're going to be aligning anyway. So I think part of this is getting the structure in place to align new product and services to future technology decisions at the same time as transforming the way of working to get there. So it's a combination of a number of these things together that drives the change.
I'm on the side of the polite Swiss guy here.
Yeah, I think you have to build the new system, kind of the new environment, the new architecture first. With a clear case where you can demonstrate short-term benefits. 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, not more. Nobody's going to watch you spending zillions of money without, you show them something. And then success breeds success. Then you kind of dry out the pond of the legacy systems by migrating products, customers, etc., one by one over there, and then you shut down the old system. Quite frankly, it was not my tenure, but some of my predecessors have taken that approach, and we shut down 13th of January this year the mainframe of 1971. Okay, so we are free of that. Now we can really pick up the pace, but I've done it in Novartis and others. On my wall is the last TCM, the last mainframe, which we dismantled in 1999. Not because it was a bad technology, because it was the monolithic mindset. You said it very nicely. It's about consumer has the power these days, not the IT department. And the business department should forget about their power there too, because the consumers. Yeah?
So you've nicely led into where I want to go next,
which is take this stuff.
Okay, so we've got the model, we've got the investment case, we've got the commitment from the management team. What is the what that we are building? Because a lot of people have come from a customized, heavily customized base, customized to fit their particular customized processes and their particular peculiarities of the portfolio. Do you go down a custom route? Do you go down a COTS route? What kind of architectural picture are we looking at as the target platform for a highly flexible, highly reactive digital platform? Who's going to take that one?
I think you've got to decide where's your competitive advantage. And if you can build commodity to deliver what you need to build, then I think you should go that route, right? But there are some probably secret sources, some things that we all do that are unique in our business that offer competitive advantage, and that's possibly where you want to do some custom
Where do
build
you
or
add
custom
that,
capability.
Albert? Do you add that in, something cleanly delineated through an API somewhere, or do you say to the vendor of the system, I just want you to change this bit, and you're on a custom siding forever?
Well, I think as far as possible, as much of what we do should be standardized. That's my belief, personal belief.
Agree with that,
if we can
Michael?
buy off the shelf, so much
does the
better.
banking industry
Maybe
agree
from
with
a
the
platform perspective, but not all things can be standardized, because we're increasingly trying to get pricing and decision support for individual customers.
so not standard application, but standard infrastructure, or
Standard infrastructure, standard right up to the API layer, if you like, and maybe standardized containers. But in terms of the actual content, more and more of that is personalized, and the analytics support, as that becomes Lambda and closer to next to real time, or in real time for things that are in memory, we need to be able to personalize down to the individual and price for the individual and package and promote to the individual closer and closer to real time.
Yeah.
views on that one?
We're going even further, because I think if you really say the power is with the consumer, or the ultimate physical customer in the end, it's much more about self-service. They will make up their own products. And if you can build this out of commodity building blocks, great, then we do it. But that's where the money is made, where simplicity is also gathered, where we learn about the customers. And if I have to write the code there, yes, I'll do. If I can build it out of standard building blocks, I'll do first that. But then the second thing comes in, we call that commoditization, is what has been your competitive advantage today might be your legacy tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. And you're building a new patchwork legacy system if you're not having this process, which I call commoditization, taking this out, something new is coming in, the feature is available from a COTS provider, then we redo it there, and then you hand it back, where obviously the unit production cost is cheaper. So it's kind of a yes, both of it, where the innovation edge is at the customer, including self-service. You let them do it.
We're very
just to build.
near to running out of time, but Phil, if I could just get you to close on, you've got the whole 9 yards. You've got the investment case, you've got the portfolio, you've got the management behind you, you've got your architecture in flight, and along comes a disruptive technology that, first of all, you thought, I'm not quite sure of that, and then, Jesus, this is important. How do you cope with disruptions that occur in flight, in the transformation journey? Do you welcome it, or do you start calling a headhunter about a new job? I mean, what do you do?
Well, I think that happens all the time, doesn't it? And we've tried many approaches, and I think all the businesses have tried many approaches. We've moved chunks of our business out and had them focus more on that, on the emerging technology in the digital world, if you like. We moved it back in again because it needs to be at the heart of our business. I think to a certain extent, it's back to what I said earlier, I think you need to be very aware and ready to adopt. I mean, the pace at which you adopt, I think, is a local business decision that you take about what sort of business are you. You know, you're a fast follower, you're a bleeding edge. But I come back to, I think you need to put them in the context of your overall architectural integrity. You can't allow these disruptive technologies to blow you off path. You need to adapt them and bring them in and blend them into your overall architecture. I think, just to go back to the other thing, the architectural view from my perspective, as you move out towards the customer from an old mindset, the core infrastructure, the BSS in our industry, the satellite domains around, and then finally the channels integration and the information, it's that area where you want to be flexible and agile and very local and context sensitive. So we're sort of standardizing from the inside out so that we can put IT outside in, if you know what I mean. But I think disruptive technology is something you have to deal with. I mean, it's a cautious following of the bets, because we've still got a lot of heavy lifting to do.
So on the way out of here, somebody comes up to any one of you and says, I've just been appointed the CIO of company X. Can you help me with what would be the 3 most important things I need to keep in mind? Maybe 3 words or 3 sentences. Let me just start with Mike. If somebody bumped into you in the pub, mate of yours, got a big new job, transformation journey, what are the 3 things I must adhere to?
invigorate the leadership team so that they're excited and engaged in the transformation and they understand what it is and what it means for the customer and what it means for the business. Get them committed to things like an architecture and simplifying the architecture and agreeing to the architecture, and then governing the investments that are made in the portfolio to stay with that architecture, and then just relentless execution. Make sure that you've got the standard groups of people that run the company stable and valued, as well as the new people that are going out and creating the new, exciting, disruptive and innovative things in the creative change process, that they're equally as excited and both teams work in unison.
Peter?
I'd tell him to go out and work with and for the customer for a month or two. Before you go into your office, you really have to know the trade.
And you mean the end customer?
The end customer, yes. Go sell your products. Whatever industry you're in, you have customers, whether it's an intermediary, go do the real job. You'll understand how your systems work, how your products work, how your customers are. I think that's the first one. You really understand it. Secondly, I'd say, together with your business colleagues and the IT leadership team, create a vision which is inspiring. You have to create some kind of a better future for people and this organization in a digital world or whatever that is.
Phil?
I probably wouldn't buy them an alcoholic drink, just in case. I would say, building on the other comments, I would say clear vision. I think build a very clear, simple to understand vision.
And you mean the vision for the company rather than the
how
IT?
the role of IT, in, you know, both in technical terms, but as in profile. And as Michael said, it really engage people around that vision, and then don't change it. So make people confident that we have a direction. I think blast communications into the channels about progress and momentum, because companies lose faith and get nervous with IT change. So I over-communicate progress. And I think if it's a group context, I think engage the wider IT organization in a group, because it's only real when everybody in the countries of a group is working on the global strategy. It's not real if somebody in the headquarters is working on it. So those three things: vision, communicate, and engage everybody in IT, I think.
And Albert?
So I agree with the previous comments. I think understanding the current customer experience is key, and then looking at where we need to be in terms of customer experience, so the before and the after vision, if you like. I think the other thing perhaps my colleagues didn't emphasize so much was, I think it's really important to understand the leadership capability in the team to drive the change. Do we have the management bench strength, both in IT and the business, that's in place and ready to drive the change forward? Because if we don't have that, we're not going to be able to run the marathon. And I think we said at the start of this discussion, these change journeys are not overnight journeys, right? They can take 4, 5, or even longer periods of time in terms of years. So do we have the stamina and the leadership bench strength to both execute on the change, but have the stamina to drive it through?
Fantastic. Well, we have run out of time. Thank you all for your tweets. I was getting them in there and trying to include them in my questions to these guys. But please give a big, big TM Forum round of applause to our panel.